Welcome to New Zealand.
Or, as the Maoris would say, New Zealand, about as far away from home as you can get.
Population about 3.5 million.
Where sheep outnumber humans by 30 to 1.
Nuclear free.
Real home of the kiwi bird.
Adopted home of the kiwi fruit.
Adopted home of the white settler.
Real home of the Maoris. Mountains with ice caps, air without pollution.
But also without an ozone layer.
So get your head down, lock in and run from the pack. First to Auckland on the North Island, New Zealand's only claim to a large city.
Then a 300-mile dash down the wing to Wellington for marriage in a city where the earth moves.
Before flying down to the South Island and Queenstown, New Zealand's answer to Val d'Isere for snow, lamb chops and choppers.
But first to Auckland for sport, sailing...
But forget the chat. What we really mean to say is...
thing off my body. Thank you. New Zealanders are so fit. It makes you sick. Their favourite sport is rugby, a sort of mixture of skill and bone-crushing violence. But of course, there are all sorts of other ways to suffer physical exhaustion, and New Zealanders love them all. Over half the population are into some kind of sporting activity, because if you're not, you're a wuss. There are more boats per capita here than anywhere else in the world, which is why all the guidebooks call it the City of Sails. Nothing to do with bargain hunters. As far as I'm concerned, a yacht is little more than a sort of floating sunbed, but apparently sailing is yet another good way to keep fit, unfortunately.
The companies are realising that their best return on their sponsorship money would be in a sporting field, because it's so widely followed by virtually every New Zealander. You know, the sports section is probably the most read section of the paper, and I guess the companies see, if they get involved with a successful team or a group or whatever, they can really start getting some benefits out of it. I don't really enjoy going to a play or an opera or anything like that, but there are people that do, and I guess they sort of get pretty uptight about it, when they see all these big $1 million deals going on.
It's time to educate.
Now's the time. Make up your mind. Listen to your own. If you learn about yourself and your history, know where you come from, you know where you want to be.
On the face of it, the country is trying to make amends for past injustices. The language has been revived, there's a ministry for Maori affairs, and now it seems even land like this, Auckland's main railway station, may well be handed back to the Maoris.
A lot of Māori people have been working in the community for a long time, trying to uplift ourselves in terms of, I guess there's two areas. One is being proud about yourself, and that's knowing where you came from, knowing your history, knowing your language and your roots and that.
Showing off your curves isn't a big deal here. Covering them up is. This might be one of the healthiest places on the planet, but beautiful bodies are kept under wraps. Well, most of them anyway.
A lot of people here are fit and do have a very good shape, but there's quite a stigma attached to showing or flaunting your body here. It's not, you know, where it's like in the States it's quite acceptable, but here, you know, it seems to be quite difficult to get people to wear body-conscious clothing. I mean, if you were successful overseas and then, you know, re-enter New Zealand and set up again here, then sure, you know, that would certainly help you.
No, not another bunch of impoverished musos busking for pennies, but MCOJ and Rhythm Slave, one of New Zealand's hottest new bands. They might have a record in the shops, but you won't hear them on the radio, because just as with fashion, if music comes from abroad, it gets immediate attention. If it's local, well, that's a bit more of a struggle. And often, the only way to get noticed is to bust.
More beer, got the messages clear. Money makes the world go round.
Yeah, I doubt it.
But it's hard to eat, breathe, and live without it.
The best things in life are free.
I don't buy it.
I'd like to see Mr. Potato Head try it.
When your funds are low, so is your popularity. Who wants to know you if you got no money?
They won't play a band on commercial radio until they're successful, and it's difficult to gain success until you do have play on commercial radio, so therefore it's a vicious circle.
The world go round.
Say what?
Go round.
Yeah, right.
Go round.
There's even been bands in New Zealand that have disguised themselves as overseas artists, not saying that they're New Zealanders, stuck out records saying US remix, and stuck in the shops hoping that because nobody knows they're New Zealanders, it might sell.
Every country has its first lady, someone who captures the hearts and minds of the nation, dominates the society pages of the colour supplements, and gives a lead on style and fashion to young women. In the United States, that woman is the president's wife. In Britain, it's Princess Di. But in New Zealand, it's a model and the wife of an ageing pop star. But Rachel Hunter is no cardboard cutout. If Rachel Hunter was the girl next door made good, then Elizabeth Charleston is the little girl down the lane waiting to make it even better.
She made people look at us and say, hey, New Zealand's down here, we exist. And like we've got scouts coming down to New Zealand all the time now.
Thanks to these kinds of successes, New Zealand's somewhat flagging economy has been bolstered by the rise of a thriving new industry, modelling schools. But it'll cost you $45 just to join the course, $300 for a photo session, and $600 just to finish the course. The trouble is, most of the Rachel wannabes who attend the courses end up being never-bees.
They're saying that you could be this and be that, and do you know what I mean? Like, they're all telling you that you could be somebody, and so you sort of think, well, maybe I could. Because I mean, I paid so much money, $600, and then I got nothing at all.
We have a lot of people that come in here that unfortunately have been ripped off. They've paid large amounts of money for photographs when they're just not suitable.
Ellie, you okay? What's wrong?
I'm fine. It's... Oh, Sam, I don't know what to do. I can't handle it.
Never mind, Alison. I'm sure that things will work out just fine for you in the end.
Thanks, Jen.
Shortland Street is New Zealand's most successful homegrown soap. There's nothing unusual about it until you actually watch television here and realise that whilst you can see Only Fools and Horses, The Darling Buds of May, Bergerac, Channel 4 Daily, the BBC News, Fawlty Towers, the list just goes on, it's a tough job to find a show that's actually made here. Which isn't surprising, because fewer than 1 in 4 of them are.
No, just me on the shift. Oh, and the jungle bunny. Yeah, some coconut with a fruit salad for a last name.
Thank you very much, everyone. That's a wrap.
Finding a Polynesian TV star in Auckland is like trying to find a theatre that's still open. That's because Renee Naufahu is the first. But despite being catapulted to stardom in less than a week, he hasn't swanked off to a new gaff in a gleaming Porsche. Oh no, he might be 22, he might be a sex symbol, he might soon be very rich, but he's quite happy to live at home with his mummy, his daddy, his 2 brothers, his 2 sisters, and his cat, Pussy.
Traditional Polynesian family culture is a world within itself, you know, not worrying about the external world, not really worrying about politics. You're worried about each and every member of your own family. There is a gang problem, especially in Auckland. You get, you know, situations where you get the gang system and the gang brotherhood, you know, has replaced the traditional kind of role of the family.
One of Auckland's toughest gangs, the King Cobras, have decided that it's time for rival Pacific Islanders to stop battling against each other and start fighting against the erosion of their own culture.
We don't more or less see ourselves as a gang, see it as a club. We try and go back and
you know, go back to the culture and try and get everyone proud of their heritage, eh? Because without your heritage, you probably end up like the blacks in America, you know? They got nothing. They go out killing each other.
New Zealanders are the world's great travellers. At any one time, a quarter of all under 30s are abroad sampling foreign culture and travel. For those of European descent, it's like they're retracing the steps of their great-grandfathers 2 centuries ago. Except this time, it's not a colonial expedition, it's an overseas experience, otherwise known as the Big OE.
What better time when you haven't got too many commitments to go overseas to find things when you're not tied down to a house or a long-term job?
I think it's just the fact that New Zealand's sort of so far out of the way. We get used to life in New Zealand, and it's just that we want to see what the rest of the world's basically like. We want to get away and experience whatever else is happening out there.
Vodka orange, beer and booze or lemonade.
Yeah, can I have 2 pints of lager, a rum and coke, and a glass of white wine, please?
I know what this looks like, but I'm helping Tanya with the revision, honestly. She's studying for a bar exams, and like all these other outward-bound New Zealanders, she's on trial. Because this is a uniquely Kiwi bar school, training professionals to pay their way around the world. A bit too much ice on that, I'm afraid.
On your marks, go!
I'm a plumber by trade, but obviously if I go overseas I want to do something completely different, so bar course is a good choice, because in Europe I've heard that you get a place to live, normally above the bar, which means it's going to save me on transport, because transport's pretty expensive over there.
In a country that's obsessed with making travel as hair-raising as possible, from dropping in on your friends on a bungee jump to blackwater rafting, it comes as a relief to find they're actually quite practical about intercity travel. There's a well-developed airline network here, so it only takes an hour to get from here in Auckland to Wellington.
Not a parachute or a piece of elastic in sight.
Datar, the Maori name for Wellington.
Most southern capital in the southern hemisphere.
A tale of 4 cities.
1 parliament.
1 zoo.
3 polytechnics.
5 theatres.
33 embassies.
160 suburbs.
2,250 parking metres.
300,000 people.
5,436,200 steps.
And 1 clever dick.
Wellington is New Zealand's fault line front line, the earthquake capital of the country. So there's always a whole lot of shaking going on. Wellingtonians reckon that the big one, which is expected to destroy half their city, will hit any day now. But the most accurate prediction appears to be eventually. Not very reassuring, but at least everyone knows what to do. Take enough muesli bars and water to last you a couple of days, a pair of strong boots, a radio, and go and sit under the table. Definitely a good idea to bring your own entertainment, or perhaps catch up with the ironing, because you are warned that in the event of a quake, you could be sitting under your table for 72 hours before the cavalry gets here. Yes, but I'm very bored of muesli bars. The Earthquake Rescue Squad are a sort of scout movement for grown-ups, and whereas normal people, like going to the cinema in their spare time or playing rugby or making balloon animals, the team like nothing better than to dash into a derelict building and indulge in a spot of rescuing.
Every time there's an earthquake, you think, this is it. But I've got my high heels on, type thing. So they reckon you should carry around this outfit with you wherever you go. You should, but sometimes it's a bit awkward.
It is actually a very good way to meet people. There are several rescue units in the Wellington region, which we're trying to have more and more group activities with. And we have a national competition coming up this year, so we'll be able to meet teams throughout the country. Swap notes.
If you wake up one morning in your comfortable New Zealand home and there's a whole lot of shaking going on, don't immediately dive for the nearest table, especially if there isn't one. It's probably not an earthquake, but an even more moving experience. Because in Wellington, New Zealand's earthquake city, wooden houses are safer, which means that every home is a potential mobile home. So if you're sick of the neighbours and you want a different view on life, then chuck your house in a lorry and quite literally move home. How popular is this method of moving house becoming?
Oh, more and more popular. We shift classrooms, houses, shops, whatever.
So you could just see basically whole towns moving from one place to another?
Yeah, well, down the road we shifted 28 houses out of the one street, and now the whole street's empty with hedges and trees and clotheslines, but no houses.
Back in the early days of the first white settlers, everyone shared a dream, to own a quarter-acre of land and your own house. Now, thanks to places like this, that dream's kept alive, because essentially this is a used house lot with some real bargains on offer.
Well, we've got the land, and then once we've got the house, we have to go to council for building permits and permission, and that also involves going around the neighbours and asking them whether they mind if we put an old house on the section.
life in New Zealand revolves around the bar and the booze. And you don't have to look very far in Wellington to find Kiwi Man. Walk into any pub and you'll get such a powerful blast of testosterone it'll knock your socks off.
3, 2, 1, go!
But what happens if a bloke's got a problem that goes a bit deeper than worrying about who's buying the next round? The emotional casualties of this country's frontier mentality machismo lie strewn across the barroom battlefield because a real man would rather die than talk to his mates about his innermost feelings. Quite literally.
The big thing is to be strong. You know, come on, be a man, be strong. I couldn't sit down with a lot of older guys and say a few things, you know, like I really felt sad when Bambi died or something like that. And it was quite hard to show a weakness to my friends. In general, it would have been, what's wrong with you? You know, oh, that's all right, you know, be a man, you can handle it. Where it's obvious I couldn't handle it.
Hi, Youthline, Dee speaking.
Oh, I just can't cope anymore.
What do you mean?
I want to kill myself.
When Cindy dresses up as a condom, it must give a whole new meaning to the phrase, slip into something comfortable. But it's only recently that the Department of Education has allowed sex ed for the under-16s, which perhaps explains why New Zealand has the second highest rate of teenage pregnancy in the developed world. But now that the ban's been lifted, the members of the Teen Counselling Clinic can put on their coat of many condoms and make up for lost time. Thank you.
People here are really conservative. They can't say sex out loud. They sort of hide in a corner and don't like talking about it much at all, especially the older generation.
The only thing they do teach is the human bio, and that's in 5th, 6th form, and that's basically learning about the human body. Things like,
even at our school, that's what they do.
They're too scared to actually say the actual word, like sex.
You're listening to Radioactive 89 on your FM dial.
Good news if you're off for a weekend skiing. Queenstown's definitely the place to be with a fresh 6 centimetres of powder overnight.
I don't know why we're smiling. This journey takes 4 hours to cover a distance of only 400 miles. New Zealand's well-developed airline network hasn't yet managed to sort out a direct route from its capital to its main South Island resort. Mind you, the view is supposed to be spectacular. People come here from all over the world for a fortnight's holiday and end up staying for years.
Locals say they're drawn by the mystic energy of the town.
Once here, people discover a spiritual aspect to their being and forge new careers as channelers, healers and mediums.
Locals say it's because Queenstown is the purest alpha vortex centre on the planet. many people in Queenstown claim they sense a strange kind of aura. Now, some members of the New Age community are developing theories to explain why the spiritually inclined are attracted here.
Many of the world's places nowadays is polluted. Look at Egypt. It was a vortex, a huge vortex. Now it's polluted. England with Stonehenge, now it's polluted. And this is one of the rare places where it's still clean, fresh and green. A lot of this knowledge that you see here was channeled to us by extraterrestrials, if you like. And we're not ashamed now, or ever will be ashamed, to use that or explain that to anyone.
Something that sets Queenstown apart from most other New Age centres is that you don't see many flowing robes and brown rice fanatics. Everyone seems quite normal. But it's a bit like one of those old B movies where people look like human beings, but really you know that their bodies have been taken over by aliens. Walk into any shop, talk to the shop assistant, and you won't suspect a thing, until they casually drop into the conversation that they got rebirthed last week.
Hello.
Hi.
You ready to order?
Yeah, I'll have an Avanti and a Coke.
An Avanti and a Coke. And perhaps you'd like a reading while you're waiting.
Right, let me think. Am I in the right career?
Is Magenta in the right career? There is more to you than merely your line of work for financial freedom. It is so you are a woman who yearns to do much more in the field of creative expression. That's the thing about Queenstown. Holistic healing, being hypnotised, doing this, having your tarot done, things like that. It's just like normal. It's every day.
It seems that even free-thinking New Agers can't escape New Zealand's sporting ethic. And here in Queenstown, the spiritual is expressed through the physical.
It just gives you that amazing lift, that spiritual lift that you find, you're high, you're happy for the rest of your life most of the time. There's an awakening here, and New Zealand more and more is drawing people here. People like myself, I've come from another place, and there's a lot of people the same in the Queenstown area.
Ah, New Zealand, where men are men and sheep are nervous. It's not just Poms that tell old jokes like that, the locals do too, which is hardly surprising in a country with 3.5 million people and 56 million of them. Sheep mustering is a tough and lonely job, but someone's got to do it. After all, the sheep are far too stupid to take care of themselves. For men, a spell on a sheep station is the equivalent of getting an agricultural degree without the paperwork. Whilst it might not be taxing on the brain cells, it's so hard on the body that most musterers can only hack it for a few years, which naturally makes it a very butch thing to do.
The average muster would probably leave school when he's probably about 16 or 17, and he would have achieved what he wanted to, like become a manager or take over some man's place, probably by the time he's 25. So yeah, it's very hard on your body, and horse riding's not exactly easy, neither's walking, or the social life's not exactly very easy either.
Do you think musterers do have a sexist attitude towards women?
There's a lot of difference in it with, you know, women. They find them a novelty, I think, more than anything else. You know, they just point them and poke them every so often and see if they can get them to squeal, you know.
All these thrusting, butch young men have to satisfy their appetites somehow. And since the place isn't full of nubile young women, they have to console themselves with food. And I wonder who does the cooking. Is it a man or a woman? Let's go through the cream door and find out. Oh, what a shock! It's a woman!
Life here, it's different than anything I've ever thought would still be around in the 90s. It's like I imagine New Zealand in the 50s would be. It's really simplistic. There's women are women and men are men and sheep are nervous and it's really it's very basic.
She was
If a herd of Amazon women came raging down the hillside and leapt into their beds, they would be petrified. They'd take off at 1,000,000 miles an hour.
If there's anything that sums up the pioneering tradition of New Zealand, it's gold mining. The whole economy of the country kicked off with the windfall profits from gold strikes last century. And now that buccaneering, go-it-alone spirit lives on here on the riverbanks of Queenstown.
When people ask you what you do for a living, you tell them you're a gold miner. But yeah, most of them don't kind of believe it. You know, they picture you down the river with your pan and kind of potting away. It's that you just all back and things like that. But it's a bit different with our dredges.
Finding a stash of nuggets like these may be an El Dorado for a small-time miner like Matt.
Not my gold back, please.
In a traders like this, that would be worth $1,000. But for the big guys, it's just cheap thrills, trinkets, simply not enough of an earner.
I actually ended up working for a gold mining company for 2 years, and the problem with that was the heavy machinery in that used to make a hell of a mess of all the creeks, and they used to tear down the odd tree. Just basically the water was polluted the whole time with silt. The way we're doing things at the moment is a lot better than the big companies, because we're not leaving any mess. You can't even see what we've been moving under the water.
Normally during the season, the slopes would be packed with absolute beginners, grizzling children, flashy exhibitionists and middle-aged executives who've decided it's time to learn a few new tricks. But those who want to feel virgin snow under their skis, ski where no man has gone before, and minimise the risk of being mown down by an irritating 8-year-old, use a chopper as a ski lift and head for the double black runs.
As a guide, my role is to look after the safety of the people on the hill when they're skiing, and to make sure they have a good time. Queenstown differs from skiing in Europe because we have a vast wilderness area here of untouched mountains, and really the only way to access them is via helicopter.
I'd like to introduce you to New Zealand's public enemy #1, but they're presently in hiding, and who can blame them? It was the English that brought the rabbits over first of all, and yet that cuddly image hasn't quite carried over. So far they've been shot at, fenced in, fumigated, fed diseases, trapped, and yet they put up a resistance that Bugs Bunny will be proud of. So yet again, it's up to the Airborne Division to come to the rescue.
It's actually like a video game, and it's really addictive, and the shooters that we have, obviously they're experienced with helicopters and things, but they actually get addicted to it. have literally thousands of them here. And as soon as you see it, you're just chasing it, just like a hawk chases a rabbit, and it's just it's an amazing feeling. It's unreal, and what you have to do is come here to New Zealand and have a go.
Queenstown is known throughout New Zealand as Party Town.
While the rest of the nation goes to bed at 10, here the weekend is 7 days long.
As New Agers would say, this is the Alpha Vortex centre of fun.
Facts and information from Magenta Divine and Rajan Datar's Rough Guide to New Zealand can be found in the December issue of BBC Holidays magazine.